Hey, how are you?
Hello.
Thanks for doing this.
Yes, pleasure.
Let me get a little bit situated.
Okay. Let me just get everything on my camera. Okay. All right. How's everybody doing today? I guess it's morning over there. It's 8:30 p.m. here in Dubai.
Yeah, it's 9:30 for us.
9:30? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I put everyone on mute by default. Maybe
Okay.
we can start with you kind of walking us through and then we can kind of open it up for questions. Does that work?
Yeah. I mean, the way I was
Okay.
going to do this was give a little background about myself, what I do in the gallery and stuff, and then basically how I got into collecting art. And I mean, I've been in this business now for 15 years. I have a lot of kind of insight on just how it is to buy art. I'm assuming everyone here is kind of not already buying art and they're kind of just interested in it, or maybe they've started a little bit but are not too savvy on it. So I'll kind of go through the basics and stuff, and then can do a little walkthrough of my collection down here to give people kind of a view of some different pieces and stuff, and then we can open it up to any questions people have. And if anyone does have a pressing question that they want to ask, they can. We can keep this pretty casual.
Sounds great.
Okay, so yeah, so I actually graduated from the Columbia School of Business in 2006, and then I moved to Dubai soon after that, and I focused on entrepreneurship. When I came out here, Dubai was really kind of new and emerging entrepreneurial kind of place. And one thing people always complaining about was that there was no culture, no art here. So it's something I kind of got into. I started it with my cousin. I'm originally Syrian. And at that time, we decided to see if there was any kind of young emerging Syrian artists that wanted to to get into art. There was a very big art university in Damascus called the Faculty of Fine Arts that was, artists were graduating, but there was no commercial gallery scene there, or really one in Dubai at that stage, to take artists from producing art to selling it, which is an important part of the art scene, is having a market and a platform so that the artists can sell their works and continue to produce works and all that. So we started my gallery really with just a hunch and an idea, and we did a competition looking for young emerging artists. We announced like a small cash prize, and we were blown away by how many artists actually submitted works to be part of this competition. And from that, from that group of, I think like, we had over 100 submissions, we selected 12 artists that we decided to launch our gallery with, Ayyam Gallery, which launched in Damascus and then a year later in Dubai. And basically, over the last 15 years, we've kind of become one of the leading art institutions in the Middle East. Started with Syrian artists, but then have grown to do Lebanese, Palestinian, even Iranian artists, giving all these Lebanese artists just an opportunity and a platform to show and exhibit their works. And this is an important thing for people to understand about what like a gallery does. At the end of the day, a gallery is kind of, to put it in another term, is almost like a record label. We have artists that we represent, that we manage, and we are focusing on, helping them grow and develop. We're not getting too involved in what they make, but we're there to kind of promote them, to guide them, to give them more awareness, and to give them more exposure. Doing exhibitions, doing art fairs. We even publish books, things like this. So it's really important to help more people discover and get to know the artists, which kind of goes into my first, major point, which is like, when you want to buy art, a lot of people look at art as this like really scary thing, and I don't know much about it, and this and that. But if you kind of break it down to like 3 basic rules, you really can't go wrong with buying art. And the first rule is the most important rule, which is buy something you like, buy something that appeals to you, that you connect with, that you enjoy, that's going to bring you some sort of joy of some sort. There's too many people that think they need to get into art and they need to like invest in art and they need to buy stuff, and then someone convinces them to buy something that they don't actually really like, and they take it home and they're just like, what am I supposed to do with this? So if you don't actually enjoy the piece or like it, then that's, it's not even worth getting. And keep looking until you find something that you like. The second rule is to buy something that you can afford. Don't kind of, buy something that's going to just stress you out every time you look at it, that you can't really afford it and stuff. So, if you have the means to buy something, buy it with a sense of, you're not thinking about the investment. You're not sitting there thinking, how am I going to, sell this if times go bad? I mean, you should really buy it and just kind of forget it in that regard. So it shouldn't be something that's too challenging to your bankroll at that stage. And you can buy a lot of great art that is not expensive. A lot of the art that I bought was not very expensive when I bought it, because you're buying it with such a long-term horizon. And then the third main thing is, if you are buying and you do have aspirations for it to be an investment and do better, then as long as 1 and 2 are met, buy from a reputable art gallery or an institution that is supporting that artist and is working on that artist. Because, the same way you guys go to work and you're focusing on your jobs and everything, you want to know that that artist has this whole kind of force behind him or her that's really pushing them and helping them grow and meet new collectors and get in more collections and book publishing and all this kind of stuff. And then if all those 3 things are met, you really can't go wrong with the piece that you bought, because, while you're sleeping, the gallery's working on them and really pushing them and promoting them and helping them develop. You have a piece that you really like. It didn't really, hurt you too much financially. And as long as you have kind of a long-term horizon on it, you really can't go wrong with those criteria. And, especially now when we're, stuck at home a lot, given the current situation, there's a story I like to tell, or like an analogy for people to understand something, which is basically this. I mean, a lot of people will look at a piece of art and it'll cost, let's say, $10,000, and they'll be like, oh my God, that's so expensive, for a piece of art. And the way I try to explain it to them, I say, look, let's say, you buy this piece, it checks off all three of your criteria, 1, 2, and 3. You hang it in your house, it costs you $10,000. And every morning you wake up, you have a cup of coffee, you sit down on the couch, you look at the piece, you smile at it, you get to work and then do whatever. And every day, wake up, cup of coffee, sit down, look at the piece, day after day after day. After 5 years, the cup of coffee you're drinking costs more than the artwork that's on the wall. And, that cup of coffee is, it's gone, but the art is still there. So what you need to understand also, art is something that you consume every day. You get value out of it, as long as you like it, which is why the first rule is important. As long as every time you look at it, just brings you sparks some sort of joy or something that you enjoy or like, you are getting value out of it, and it's going to appreciate in that sense. And I always say, if you do these 3 things well, and buy things you enjoy, and look, your tastes are going to change at times. You're going to buy something potentially, and then maybe after you might outgrow it, or as you get more experience with something. But that being said, you can always probably, sell it or trade it or do something like this, or you can just kind of keep it or put it in storage or something like this, and, sell it down the road. I mean, usually with art, if you have a 5, 10, 15-year horizon, very rarely will your piece ever go down. But, a lot of my pieces that I bought like 10, 15 years ago are now worth, 2 to 3 times what I bought for, and some of them even more. And it's something where I didn't even think about it. It's like I'll show you a piece I bought from a South Korean artist 10 years ago. I bought it for $5,000. And I was just asking the gallery the other day, I was like, how much is this piece worth now? For insurance reasons and stuff. And they're like, oh yeah, we sell a piece like this now for 20,000. And I'm like, okay, that's, it's not, I have no intention of selling it. I don't want to sell it. I like it. But again, these are the things where these things happen. Now, if I was to buy it a year later and ask them what's it worth now, they'd tell me the same price. So, things change and as times go by. And the reason why this happens on a long-term horizon, you guys obviously all are very smart people, having gone to Columbia, basic supply demand, right? Now, an artist is always producing. Let's say my artist, he keeps producing works. So you think supply is limitless, he's always producing. But artists over time, they change their style, right? So let's say I'm doing a certain phase. I mean, everyone knows, I'm sure familiar with some of like Picasso stuff. So, you go through a period and then you do a blue period, and everything he's doing is blue at that phase. But at some point it's going to change, and he's going to change to do something else. Now, the artist who did the blue phase is gone. It's no longer there. You can't make any more of those. Those are now become a limited number. So once art gets on a certain time horizon, this is how things get more expensive, because the artist might be alive and still producing, but he's not doing those kind of works anymore. So this is why if you buy something you like in this, you'll be surprised where for a while the price stays the same, and then all of a sudden, the artist decides he wants to do something else, and then all of a sudden those previous works will jump. So that's something to keep in mind. As far as, buying art, obviously there's many different ways. And if you're a new person, a new collector, or someone who just wants to get exposed to art and maybe find it, galleries have, they represent artists, and they might have a lot of artists that they represent. But when you go to a gallery, they're usually just showing one artist. So a lot of times if you stumble into a gallery, you might see a bunch of paintings on the wall and be like, oh, okay, you might not like that artist. A lot of galleries have a lot of different artists. It's like, you might walk in there and not really like that work and then just dismiss the gallery, but the gallery might have a pretty wide collection of stuff. So it's really important to not kind of just judge what the gallery is doing based on that one show. Usually a good way is, obviously going on their website, seeing all the stuff that they have. If there's like a gallery in your neighborhood, or you hear about a good gallery or something like this, it's always good to do your research online visually, see the artist, go through some of their select works. And then you can always call the gallery and say, hey, I'm interested in this artist. I want to see some works that they have. And a lot of the times they have it in their private collection. They can pull it out and show it to you. We don't really do big group shows all the time. Normally, galleries are focusing on like exhibitions for certain artists. A really good place to go if you're a new kind of collector and you want to see a lot of different art and really try to understand what your tastes are and what you like, are art fairs. Art fairs are happening all the time, and they've become kind of a very important platform for selling art. And it's a good way to go and not really feel too intimidated, because there's just so many people around and you don't have to worry about going in there. And if you feel a bit shy about asking questions or whatever, but this is a very good platform to go to find artists. Um, we do a lot of auctions here in Dubai, and auctions can be a good, and there's a lot of these like young collectors auctions that you see where you can go and see like a exhibition of works and go. And sometimes it's a bit easier to do something in an auction because it feels a bit more like you're playing a game for the work, as opposed to like, you know, trying to negotiate or something. Like we always find that new collectors have an easier time buying things at auction because you almost see other people bidding on something and that you feel more comfortable with the price, as opposed to if you go to a gallery and you ask them what the price is, you're not quite sure if that's the right price. So this is something that we've seen a lot. And yeah, and I think now online is becoming a very big platform. You know, a lot of people you have a lot of like Artsy and a lot of these websites that are doing really, really well. And all these galleries, including us, I mean, we're showing a lot of our works and stuff there. And this is important as well because, you know, art has become so international and it's very difficult to like see everything from where you are. And all the galleries tend to show more regional art, and you might be really into something from another country. And it's a really good way to see now, and like the logistics and all this stuff has gotten really good. That being said though, buying online does take a kind of acquired eye to it, because there's something to be said for actually getting to see the work and seeing it in person. I do recommend in the beginning, when you're first getting into buying art, to try to visit galleries, try to see works, try to see mediums, try to understand, ask the questions about how it all works. Like for example, if you're buying sculptures or photography or a lot of the digital art and stuff, people might not know that these things come in editions. So there might not be just one of them, there might be multiple editions. So if an artist is making a photography or a video piece or something like this, there'll be, you know, maybe 8 of them, or edition of 5, an edition of 3. So it's always good to know how many editions are there, how many have sold, things like this. Trying to see what are the main kind of things. So I wanted to just give you guys a sense first of, let me just give you guys a quick little run through of some different kind of art pieces and mediums. Because I really find when you build a collection, it's not just about buying a painting or a photograph or this. Art has gone really multimedia at this day and age. And this is something that I'm really excited about. And like, I mean, obviously I have a lot of paintings and a lot of the classical mediums that you might find, but there's something to be said for having a collection, and sometimes sculptures or video pieces or things like this are quite good. I don't know if this is gonna work, but I don't know if you can see this piece here. This is a Syrian artist. It's like a big wooden sculpture of a head. But if you want to see like the scale of this head, it's actually, you know, actually a big piece. It's bigger than me. But something like this can be a really big, you know, nice, you know, beautiful, imposing piece in a house. It's not just about having little sculptures and things like this. Another thing I wanted to mention is when you see a piece, you know, it's not always about just seeing what it is at the surface. A lot of times there's like a story to it. It's important to understand the story. So like, for example, you have a lot of art that's like conceptual. So it's more about the idea or the inspiration behind it. Of course, some of it can, you know, it's up to you to decide if you buy it or if you're into it. But like, for example, I was in an art fair in London one time, and you know, I walked through this one booth, and sometimes like conceptual art can be really, really out there, and it's something that's quite interesting. Some of it, you know, even me, and I'll say, you know, can completely fly over your head, and you just don't get it, and that's okay. It's okay to like not understand what the artist is trying to do, or not to kind of be into it. But like, I went into one gallery, and I saw just like it was an old suitcase that was just in the middle of the booth. And, you know, had I not asked, I just would have assumed it's just some old dinky suitcase. When I asked the gallery, I said, what's this art piece about? You know, they explained that basically this artist likes to create the sense of like wonder of what's inside. So the same way when, you know, people have these like containers that get lost, and then they auction them off, and people are just buying them and opening them up to see what kind of like treasures await inside. He did the same thing where he would take a suitcase, and he says that he fills it with something, and then he locks it on the outside. And he doesn't tell you what he's put inside of the suitcase. So, and he's put all sorts of different things in it, but that's the whole conceptual thing, is you're never allowed to open the suitcase to find out what it is. The second you open it, you're going to damage the piece and ruin it. So he's selling you this wonder of what's in my suitcase. Now, this could seem completely crazy and stupid, or some people think this is, you know, pretty amazing to have the creativity to do something like this. You know, sometimes these things catch you off guard, and it, you know, makes you think, and you're like, wow, this is really interesting. And this artist does really well, and he sells lots of these, you know, lots of these pieces, and you're like, okay, interesting. You know, it doesn't have to be for you, but for some people, they really like it, you know. Other times you go and the stuff is just so like, there was another piece where it was like a typewriter, and it was just kind of on its side. And I asked, you know, what's up with this typewriter? And they go, oh, well, you always see the typewriter this way, so we're going to put it, you know, the artist thought, you know, we're changing perception by turning it this way. And I thought to myself, okay, I don't, you know, like that to me didn't quite make much sense, but it's fine. You know, you're going to see a lot of this stuff out there. And the way I kind of describe it as well, when it comes to art, art is like music. You know, you could say I like music, but you might not like experimental jazz, and you might like hip hop, and you might like techno or whatever. You know, there's so much stuff out there that it's really important to like find what is the kind of, you know, art or music that you're into, and then try to find the galleries, you know, almost like the record labels who are promoting those artists. You know, you might be very much into this like really contemporary crazy stuff like this, and there's tons of it out there. Or you might be more into, you know, I like classical paintings, or I like the modern stuff, or I like the contemporary. So it's really important to like find that aspect of it. A lot of people just think, oh, I like art and I collect art. But again, it's so much wider and more in depth than just that. There's a whole world to find out. And the same way, you know, not all music and things like that are the same. It's the same for art. Let's continue here. So this is like a really interesting piece that I got. I don't know if you guys can see what this is, but this is a light piece. It's by these Dutch artists called Studio Drift. But if you go in very closely, you will see that these are LED lights with dandelions glued onto them. So these are actually real dandelions that are glued onto LED lights. It's just an art piece called Fragile Future. This is something I bought. This is kind of more on the design side of art, but to me, I just thought this was a strikingly beautiful piece. And again, it met all three of my criteria. It was something I thought was beautiful. I could afford it. It wasn't that expensive. And, you know, the artists were people that I believed in. Moving here, I mean, you can see some of these paintings I have are quite monstrous. I mean, this goes way up there. Here, this is a sculpture by an Iranian artist. So I'm really big into like sculptures and paintings. This is another piece where I thought it was kind of interesting. It might make much sense to you guys, but this is more of an Arab thing. But if you look at this piece, it's just a giant wooden stamp. Can you see that? It's just a giant stamp, and it just says Inshallah on it, which basically means God willing. It just basically means might happen, might not happen. And it's just the kind of thing in the Middle East where every time you ask someone if something's going to happen, they just tell you Inshallah, and they put a stamp on it. So this is a conceptual piece that an artist made going with this. I want to show you guys another medium I'm talking about. So if you can see this is actually a painting, but then there's a video piece inside the painting. And this is one of these pieces where it's an edition, so it's an American artist, edition of 3. But this is kind of a new age thing of like multimedia things. Which just shows that like art is always evolving, always changing, using more mediums, more technology. And it's something that you have to be aware of, like the technological aspect of it. this is the piece I was telling you guys about. That was, so if you see this piece, it's actually, see how it looks three-dimensional and it's going into the wall? It's actually just this size. It's just this big, but it just used double mirrors to create this illusion, optical illusion that it's three-dimensional. This is the South Korean artist. And again, I was at an art fair, thought it was really neat, really interesting, beautiful. Bought it, was $5,000. Bought this 10 years ago, and this is now worth 20,000. But it's just something that, again, I bought it just for the sake of buying it because I thought it was something nice. Again, I find a lot of times with art, it's important not to just get too caught up in anything more than if you like it. Is it something that you can afford? Is there a gallery that you feel comfortable about? Or at least if you have any questions about the artist, they can answer them. Are they doing exhibitions for them? Another thing, a little tip when buying art is, oh, sorry, there's questions here I'm not seeing. Let me just say one more thing, is if you do find an artist that you like and you find out they're represented by a gallery, a lot of times the artist will have multiple galleries representing them. So they might have representation in one section of the world, but then they might have another gallery in other sections. So it's always good to like try to find the other galleries also that represent them, and you can always kind of double check things like prices.
So if you want, if it's easier, I can kind of read some of the questions.
Yeah, I just saw here. So how we, okay. So how the price, okay, how we price them at the gallery. This is a good question. So basically when we started with our artists, again, we've been doing this for 15 years. My first artist that we started with, you know, we priced them, they were all priced around $2,000, $3,000 to start. And let's say they make 20 pieces, you know, 20 works in a year. You, at first, you know, you're selling to a very small group of people, let's say in one country or anything like this. And then let's say you sell all these pieces very quickly. They just fly off the racks. And then all of a sudden people, you have more people waiting them or wanting them and stuff. Then when the new, it's basically just supply and demand. If the artist is kind of outproducing his price point at a huge rate, I mean, you don't jack it up, but you might creep it up incrementally over time. But a lot of these artists, like some of these artists who we were selling for $2,000, $3,000 when we launched the gallery 15 years ago, are now selling, you know, between $20,000 and $40,000 per piece. This artist here, his name is Safwan Dahul. He was, so when I told you that a lot of our artists were students in the university, he was actually a professor at the university who helped us select which artists that we wanted. And he, you know, some other artists will jump much more. Like he, at the time, maybe 15 years ago, was selling for $5,000 a piece. His works now can sell anywhere from $250,000 to $300,000 a piece. So sometimes an artist really outperforms when they're just really selling and have a huge demand, and you kind of just slowly increment the prices up in order to match that demand. But you have to be very careful as a gallery, because if you kind of go too high, you can overshoot the market and then the artist can stall. And this is not what you want. You know, this is why sometimes it's very dangerous when you have an artist in an auction. You know, let's say Christie's or Sotheby's, a lot of times, like especially in certain markets, they will still get into primary sale. So they'll be selling an artist that you're still working on or you still have. And let's say I have an artist and he's selling for $50,000 and one piece goes in Christie's and it sells for $100,000. You know, then all of a sudden, you know, people are looking, you know, for arbitrage. They're looking to buy from you and stick them in the auction, which you don't want, you know. Or, you know, even worse is if you're selling at a certain price and then it goes in auction and for whatever reason it doesn't sell, it could hurt your price. So you really want to be careful as the gallery to, you know, support the artists, price them at a point where they're selling. It doesn't do anyone any good if the prices go too high. And just something to always note when you're speaking to a gallery, there's always a bit of wiggle room. I mean, discounts and stuff, because, you know, you can always try to negotiate, usually 10, 15%. And right now is a great time to buy because galleries are obviously really, really struggling. So if you have, you know, any sort of excess cash or whatever, you can get some really, really good deals right now because and it's good for, you know, the whole market because the galleries need to survive and continue. The artists get their, you know, get their money to continue. and you can get some really, really, really good deals right now. And this is something to also understand that, you know, a lot of galleries work on a commission base. I mean, a concession basis. So basically, they get the works. They're not actually buying the works. They're just selling it on behalf of the artist. And then usually it's like a 50-50 split. So whatever they sell it for, the artist will get half and they'll get half. Yes, this is good about the art provenance and documentation. So this is something that we do, which is really, really important. Obviously, every piece that we get, you know, we photograph it, we do a certificate of authenticity, and we give this anytime someone buys a work from us. And it's very important to have this. This is very good for, you know, art insurance. Also getting it appraised. It's really important that you get something that has the value of it from the gallery, so you can get art insurance appraised. I mean, you know, things happen, and the worst is, and you can actually have this redone. So a lot of times what will happen is we have, you know, collectors who have bought from us, and then over the years, you know, after 5-10 years, they'll come back and ask us for, you know, what's this artist selling for now, or what would you price this at now? And then this can increase, you know, the insurance value, because what you don't want to do is have an artist for 10-15 years, whatever, you have a fire, something happens or it gets damaged, and then you're only claiming the, you know, purchase price. So it's always good if you do have art, you know, to always keep getting it kind of revalued along the way. But you should definitely be getting, any piece you buy, a certificate of authenticity. And a lot of times, and especially if you're buying any sort of digital work or anything like this, to have the actual source code or file backed up as well. A lot of times, you know, this is the piece you're buying. Like if I have this video piece, there's actually the USB data thing that should be kind of backed up and stored as well. Yeah, so this is important as well, protecting your art from sunlight. A lot of the art, it's important to also speak to the galleries and the artists to find out what sort of treatment that they've had. I did have a piece, this big piece that was on my wall there. I had a different piece there before, which was affected by sunlight. And this is something sometimes you don't, you know, think about, that the sun can have a very damaging long-term impact. Now, most paintings and stuff, when an artist puts the varnish and all that kind of stuff, it does protect from the sun. It's just important to find out from the artist what's the medium they did, what sort of treatment they had, and to find out from them. So that's a very good question to find out, because sometimes you can have a photograph or you can have something, and if you have a direct sunlight coming in, it can cause it to fade over time. Just curious, how many people are actually, have anyone, you guys purchase art? Or are you guys just thinking about getting into it? Or has anyone out there actually collected yet? Okay, what kind of factors cause an artist value to spike? I mean, obviously, there's many things. Obviously, you have, anytime there's like a big exhibition, like for example, if an artist, let's say in the Venice Biennale, they get called to be a part of that pavilion. I mean, it's like anything that causes the artist's awareness or global awareness or kind of level to increase is going to cause a spike. The way we look at it from our market, and there's, you know, the Middle East is still pretty much an emerging market. But the way it normally happens is, let's say you start with a Syrian artist, and usually a Syrian artist is going to start being collected by Syrian collectors, let's say, or, you know, collectors from that certain country, because that's his immediate kind of grouping. And then that artist might start getting a little bit of a regional following. So let's say the Syrian artist all of a sudden is going to attract collectors from Lebanon and, you know, UAE, and just some of the other Arab countries might start collecting it because it's similar to their works, and those are regional collectors. And then it might go to a slightly bigger group, and maybe some Iranian collectors might start getting into it. And then all of a sudden, once that artist is getting to a certain price point and has a following, and maybe he's had some, you know, book publishings, or had, you know, been seen in some art fairs, or maybe has been in some, you know, important institutions, then all of a sudden regional collectors might start, you know, more international collectors might get on their radar, and then they might start buying. And as more and more people start going, it can cause a big spike. But like major events, definitely, like if they're in a biennale, if a very important institution or a collection purchases them, or if they get asked to do like a museum show, or some big art book comes out or something like this. And this is kind of the job of the gallery. So we are constantly, looking for these opportunities. We're always trying to find, more ways to get them awareness and get them on an international scale, because the big thing is a lot of times you sit there, it's not just about selling art. You're not trying to just sell art, but we're trying to build the platform and career for artists. And this is why we invest so much in like book publishing and things like this. Let me see what other questions. So selecting the artists for our gallery, the way we did this, we did it initially with art competitions. So you always discover like that fresh new breed of talent through these kind of things. But then once you become an established gallery, I mean, people will come to you or through other artists or this or that. And then you just want to find artists that you believe in, that you believe their work, and you think you can add value to their program. Okay, we're getting a bunch of questions now. So how do you identify artists with long-term potential? Look, I mean, it's like anything. It's really difficult to just, I don't know if they're talking about more for buying or for like representing, but in terms of buying, again, I mean, when people bought Andy Warhol, no one had any clue that Andy Warhol was going to become Andy Warhol. The Campbell soup cans and all this, people just liked it, thought it was fun, and they bought it. And it wasn't expensive at that time, and they did it. So it's one of these things where it's really important that that you just buy things that you like, and get to know a gallery and get to understand the gallerist taste and what they like and who they're promoting, and have faith in yourself. If you like it, there's a good chance that other people are going to like it. And I always say art is for like your generation to enjoy, and it's for our children to think about selling. Because if you get it to that kind of a time horizon, this is when art prices can get really, really good. And it's about like any investment, right? It's having a diversified portfolio. If you have 30, 40 pieces, they're not all going to be worth a lot, but you might hit a few home runs with some of these things that get really, really high. Let me see. What I thought about prints. Look, I think prints are a great way to start collecting. We actually sell prints, so we'll do prints of artworks and stuff. And like any edition, it's a lot more affordable, and it's a great way. At the end of the day, it's nice to have beautiful things on the wall that you're going to enjoy in this, and a lot of them do, increase in value, and they're a lot more affordable and a lot more collectible in the beginning. So I like prints a lot. I mean, we have a bunch of prints. I mean, there's a print actually just here. This is a print that I have here. You can see here, the edition number is right there. The artist has been signed, and it's next to like a really beautiful artwork here. So they can, hold their weight next to any artwork. So I think prints are never a bad ways to start. Are counterfeits a common issue once an artist gains traction? Yes, I mean there's always going to be people looking to make money in illicit ways, and especially here in the Middle East. Once the auction market started getting going, you had a lot of the modern artists, so the older artists were coming out and being very successful, and then all of a sudden you started hearing about a lot of counterfeits coming out of it. And the thing about counterfeits, they only kind of really come out if the gallery is not really keeping a catalog of the works. So, I mean, the way we protect our clients or our customers from counterfeits is, any piece that one of my artists makes is documented, is cataloged, is photographed and stuff. So obviously if a new work comes out and it's not in our database, then it's a counterfeit, and the artist will say this. So this is something that happens when this hasn't been done, and you see this a lot for some of the older paintings and the artists who are dead. Works will pop up on auction, and a lot of people aren't 100% sure if it's actually a real piece or not, because there was never a database done for this. So that's definitely something to to be mindful of. So after business school, how did I get into this career? As I was saying before, I mean, I was always into art as a collector, and I always liked it. I didn't have an art background or anything like that, but I always had kind of entrepreneurial dreams and everything, and came to Dubai, and just we had this idea to just do this art competition to see if there was young artists that were doing, you know, really good work, so we could try to build a gallery around. And we were blown away by the talent that we discovered in Syria. And as I was saying, there was this amazing school, like a factory, just producing amazing artists. But these artists were actually going on to have other jobs and not being artists because there was no gallery scene to support them. And so we did this competition, and then from this these submissions, we took 20 artists and we went to them and said, look, let's try to do this. You know, quit your job. Let's focus on art, you know, full time. And we started just selling their pieces for like $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000. And we got very lucky because at that time, I mean, obviously before the wars and all this stuff started in Syria, there was this, the best hotel in Damascus is the Four Seasons. And like most hotels, their lobby art was just terrible. So we went to them and said, look, we want to put all our paintings in your lobby for free. And all we're going to ask is, if anyone asks you where they're from, you know, we're Ayyam Gallery just down the street. And right at that time was when there's a lot of people were traveling from all over the world to visit the old Damascus town. And this is before the wars and everything. It was like this revival Damascus was having. And we did this thing, and it was like the first year was just like a huge spark, people coming, everyone, you know, was asking about this art because it was really, you know, emerging and fresh and fun. And people were coming over, and the prices were not expensive. So they were just buying, I mean, huge numbers of paintings and stuff. And we were able to like take this money and take these artists and just keep building them. And then from that, we kind of opened our gallery in Dubai. And happy to say, like, these artists, you know, became career artists. And not only that, when the war came out, we got them all out of Damascus. So all these artists have been relocated to other countries. All 20 of them are now producing, and it's, you know, luckily we're able to save at least that part of the culture before all this chaos started in Damascus. Okay, so the biggest challenge in setting up the gallery, I mean, obviously not having an art background, you know, is always challenging, but this is kind of something we kind of prided ourselves on to kind of make it a bit less intimidating and to really be more about, because the whole Middle Eastern art scene was very young, and it's just more about, and we try to make, you know, take the stuffiness out of art. I mean, art has this perception of being very stuffy in this, but we find it, you know, it can be very exciting, it can be very raw, it can be very, you know, exciting to just get in it and buy it and like it and not have to really understand the history of it, because we feel like we're creating a new history with young emerging art. And I think this is the thing is with young emerging art, it's not a, you know, a huge price point, and you can really just buy things that you like and support the artists and put it on your wall. And again, if you have that mentality of I'm consuming it and I'm enjoying it every day, it's bringing me some sort of joy, and I'm not thinking about, you know, you speak to a lot of people, and it's like the people who buy art without thinking of the investment value of it, who are just truly buying it out of passion, are always the ones who end up making the most money buying art in the long run. It really has that, because if you're doing it from the right place, it tends to work itself out. If you're just buying with, you know, they say you should buy with your eyes and not your ears. If you're just buying what people are telling you is trendy and good, it's usually not going to end well. Unless you're talking about, you know, flipping paintings on the auction market that are big established, you know, artists, that's a whole nother story. I'm talking about more about collecting art for yourself as a collection. Obviously, it says here, any recommendations to learn more about international artists? Now, the major art fairs do focus on kind of the blue chip galleries and blue chip artists, but there are like satellite offshoots of a lot of these art fairs that you can go to that focus on more young and emerging artists. But now in this day and age, you can really do it all online. Artsy is a very good platform for discovering. And there's a lot of these art portals now where all the galleries are listing from all over the world. They're getting very sophisticated with understanding. You can say if you like certain things and stuff, and then it has an algorithm that will kind of show you more things. And then once you kind of get a sense for maybe, okay, I like this artist, and you can start following them a bit, or I like this gallery and stuff, then it's really good to like contact the gallery and just ask for like, can I see more of this kind of stuff? Or, they can let you know. You might discover, for example, like let's say an artist that I represent on Artsy, but of course you're not planning on coming to Dubai anytime soon. So then you might look there and discover that there is a gallery in the States that's representing them. So a lot of times artists have multiple representations. So even if it's an emerging artist from another country, they might have a gallery there that's representing them. Let's see what other. Who takes care of the shipping? When we do our works, I mean, shipping is normally paid for by the customer. But again, it just depends on the work, on the price, on the medium and everything. In terms of the logistics aspect of it, a good gallery will manage that whole thing for you. So we work with a lot of shipping companies to make sure that things are properly packed, properly shipped, all that kind of stuff. I mean, here, you buy from us locally and stuff, and we have a whole art handling team that even come and do the installation and hang everything and all of this. If it's going internationally, you have to work with usually a third party. Again, you also have to keep in mind certain things. If you are buying things internationally, you need to really pay attention to things like customs, declaration, all these kind of things, because if there's like a duty or anything like that that gets put on top, it can definitely increase the price of things. But sometimes if it's a certain piece, like I said, there's always a bit of wiggle room in the price, depending on the artists and what's happening. And sometimes a gallery might say, look, part of the discount, we'll do the shipping for free and send it to you. But it depends on where it's going to and stuff. Any other questions? In terms of, it's important to just, how do you know if you, so the question here is, how do you know if you need to maintain the art, i.e. varnish and stuff? Normally all of that stuff is done by the artist. So the artist should, do the varnish and the final coating and everything on the piece. If it's a painting, if it's a sculpture, there's many different things. Again, it's really up to the gallery to know all this stuff and to have all this information. And this is why it's really important that the 3 rules: buy something you like, buy something you can afford, and buy from a reputable gallery. You really want to work with a gallery. You are spending hard-earned money on something. You do want it to appreciate. You want it to not even appreciate, you just want it to last. I mean, the worst thing is to buy something and then it just disintegrates over time, and then you don't even get to enjoy it anymore. So really the gallery should know about all these aspects, or at least be able to connect you with the artists, to have a sense for all these things. But it is important to know and also have an understanding for the environment you're going to hang it in. If you have like humidity issues, or like if you're in a country where it's very humid, I've heard stories of people buying pieces and they mold. So like anything, you just need to be aware of these things, but the gallery is who you should be speaking to. It says here, should buyers care about curating their collection? That's actually a very good question. When I started buying pieces, I just bought things I liked. I didn't think about curating or having a theme or anything like this. I was just buying pieces here and there that I liked. It's not until you get a few pieces going and you hang them and you put that you will start to see a commonality or a theme or something that maybe runs through the collection, or certain aspects of your personality or things that you like to go through it. That almost the curating part almost is happening without you realizing it. It's an extension of your personality. And I think this is a really exciting thing, is once you get enough pieces and you get it out there, you start to really feel proud of it, and it's your collection. And we've even done that where after time, we published books on our own collection. You make books of your pieces and things like this. And I have a lot of pieces now that I don't even, they aren't even hanging in my house. They might go into storage, and then you can kind of rotate through. Obviously, it's much easier to build a collection if you have a gallery, because you're just around so much art. But again, it's just about just being around art as much as you can. Try to go to as many art shows, art fairs, pop into an auction here or there. Again, go to an auction where it's not going to be, $1 million pieces, but they have young collectors auctions where you can go see the catalog. There's something you like, go in there and say, hey, I'm going to, try to get this. And the thing with auctions is sometimes you can buy things for very, very low prices, because I don't know if you guys know how an auction works, but there might be like an expected range of what it's supposed to sell for, but then there's the reserve price, which is the minimum it can sell for. And if no one bids against you, a lot of the times you can get it at the reserve. So if the estimate is like 5 to 10,000, and you go into this place and you think everyone's going to want this piece, but you'd be surprised. Sometimes you're the only one who wants it, or maybe only one other person wants it. You make the first bid and no one actually bids against you. And instead of it, let's say it's 5 to 10,000 and no one bids against you, you might be able to get it for 3,000. And I've done this for a lot of pieces where you just go, and if you throw the paddle up there and stuff, and it's actually there's a lot of kind of young, fun, emerging auction houses that really specialize in this kind of art, and it's a fun way to collect. So that's something you could check. And like I was saying before, these young emerging art fairs as well, they're always tied up to the big ones. So anytime there's a big major art fair, either in New York or LA or whatever, a lot of times there'll be 3, 4, 5 satellite art fairs that pop up all around that have a bit more emerging or younger galleries and stuff. And you can just figure out where what you like in there. And a lot of times you can pop in and it might be something you like, and sometimes it's not. But again, you just have to kind of go and check it out. Let's see, did I miss any questions? So the question is, have I used art title insurance? I'm not sure what you mean by art title or just insurance, but I definitely get all my art insured. I have a separate kind of policy for all of this. Like if you're gonna get to the point where you're actually spending money and you really, trying to build a collection, it's definitely worth getting art insurance. It's not the most you can price it based on the values and stuff, and reassess with time. But it's the kind of thing where you could have water leak, damage, something happens, and you'll be so glad. Look, nothing's ever going to replace the piece if it's damaged, but at least you don't get the double hit of like losing the value of it plus this. And then if you are able to recover money for it, you can always go and get more art. But it's one of these things where I definitely think it's important. I mean, they always say you don't need insurance until something happens, and then you'll be really glad that you got it. And another thing too is sometimes there are really good art restorers out there. That's the thing people don't realize. Sometimes if things do get damaged or there's this, it's really important to, there are people who can kind of fix things and do miracles to things. Okay, I have here a request to see more of the collection. So I'm happy to show. I'll actually show you the very first piece I ever bought. So I was at an art fair. I just saw this piece. I don't know if you guys can see it. So it's actually, let me go to the other side. I don't know if you guys can see this. but it's like a sculpture. And then there's like a face here and the back of a head here. And it's basically what I thought was really interesting. You see there is like glass panel slides here, and the artist has kind of traced a CT scan of their head. But I don't know if you can kind of see, but when you look at it from different angles, it's almost 3D. But then if you look at it from the side, it disappears. So this is just something that I really liked. And, a lot of the times I don't get too caught up if I like something and caring so much about who's the artist, what museum are they in, or this. I mean, if you're buying as a young collector entry-level stuff, half the time they're not going to be in a huge major collection of stuff. I mean, if it's a good price point and the gallery behind them is good and you believe in what they're doing, or you feel like they're professional about what they're doing, then it's good enough to get if you're going to enjoy it. I don't know if you can see this. This is an artist, a Syrian artist. So these are actually pieces of charcoal. So there's like put onto this painting, but when you kind of zoom out, it just creates this like these circles that go out, and it's hard to see, but if you they really like pulsate. And then let me show you guys another piece I bought here. This is a Palestinian artist I bought, who's actually lives in New York. Her name is Samia Halabi. She is in her late 70s, but what's really amazing about this is just the level of shading and stuff. I really like a lot of these abstract, kind of geometric, very colorful. I find they really kind of set a room alive. This is another artist. So you can see here, really vibrant splash of color. Again, it doesn't have to come down to anything more important than it just evokes a feeling or something you like it. What's interesting is this artist, this is Samia Halabi. This is a piece of hers from the 70s, just to show you. So this is one of her original artworks when she was in her 30s, in the 70s. And this is a piece she did much later in her career. So you can see the difference. And what's it tilted? So a lot of time an artist will really change and evolve over time. This is another. This is a Syrian artist. This is what I find quite interesting as well. I mean, if you think about Middle Eastern art, you might think about that the art is going to be, something political or something veiled woman or something like this. But a lot of these young artists are just doing contemporary art. This is another piece by. I want to show you this piece. Another big sculpture is, I don't know if you can see. You see the big elephant? So the big elephant with just like everything is glued on there, almost like candy. This is a Lebanese artist that we represent. Again, I really like mixing, if you see between painting, sculpture, light installation, things like this, it just really is part of what I kind of am into. This piece here is, if you look very closely, these are like, like the rubber stamps, like on a typewriter. So this is all, this medium, this artist has taken kind of stamps and then painted on it. Yeah, this work. So this work, the Bin Laden Obama work. This is actually a funny story. This is actually a Pakistani artist. He's a young conceptual artist. I bought this piece for like less than $1,000. You know, I have a lot of expensive art, and this is the piece that people always talk about. So I don't know if you can see, but it moves. It just says the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. So the Holy Ghost is Bin Laden. The Father is Obama, and then the Ahmadinejad from from Iran. It's just a silly, funny political piece. It just kind of moves as you. Again, it was just something I liked. I thought it was interesting. And again, it's as simple as that. It doesn't need to be any more complicated. And again, it all just kind of works. You know, I have a lot of things that are about perception. I have another piece here. This is, see if you can see this. So you can see how this is a light piece. One of the ones, these bulbs actually went out. This is actually interesting. You can see here in the reflection, it says don't, right? The white part of the light. But you actually, actually, if you look at it in person, this, backwards because it's on the camera, this says leave. So it actually says don't leave, if you look at the light. I thought that was, it's called, the name of the piece is Lover's Quarrel. So it's like leave, don't leave, don't leave. I thought that was a fun little piece to have by the door. This is actually a British artist that commissioned. So I don't know if you can, if this is gonna work on a camera. So can you see this piece? Let's see if this is working, the one on the wall. I don't know if this is gonna work, but basically, if you look at this piece, it looks like a two-dimensional, like a flat piece. But then when you get close, let's see if it'll work like this. When you actually get very close, it's actually sticking out of the wall. It's like a three-dimensional piece, but it kind of tricks your eye into thinking it's flat. So when you move across, the whole thing is like moving. And I actually commissioned the artist to actually, I didn't like what he was painting. So I actually commissioned him to do a piece of my paintings. So that piece I showed you that's hanging over there is right here in the piece. And these are my artists that I have. So this is another thing as well. Sometimes you might like an artist, their style or something they do, and maybe you just, I don't know, you haven't connected with the work, but you've connected with the artist. And sometimes what you can do is commission them to do a custom piece for you. So if you're in touch with the artist, or let's say you have a massive wall, or you have a section of the house and you have a vision and say, this, you know, piece by this artist, but you can't find the right one. It's very easy to just contact the artist and say, I want you to, you know, do something for me in this size or this. So that's something I've done a lot, is commission artists to do pieces just for me. If you have an idea or something you want to do, sometimes they're open to it, and it can be quite fun to collaborate. So what art fairs do you show at? So we used to travel a lot and do, like, you know, fairs, everything from New York to London, and there are fairs that happen in Dubai. Obviously we haven't done anything since COVID. But before that, we were doing a lot of them. And it's tough because these art fairs can be very expensive for a gallery. I mean, if you think about it, to ship all your works out there, to fly out there, to do all of this, you have to really be committed to doing the fair 3, 4, 5 years. Because, you know, if you think about it, if I come as like a gallery from the Middle East to a fair in the States, I mean, most collectors are not just going to come and buy on the spot. They're going to like really want to do their research and try to investigate and do this. So you might need to come 2, 3, 4 times to really sell. It can be quite an investment for the gallery. I mean, you could spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on an art fair, or doing 2, 3 of them at a time. And then if you're not selling, it can really put your finances in play. So you know, we have to really be selective on the ones that you really feel like the people going are going to be receptive to, you know, to your artists. If you're coming with really emerging Middle Eastern artists, you want to be in a place where there's maybe other emerging galleries and stuff, and it's not too conservative. You want to make sure that it's going to be, you know, good for the artist, because if the gallery goes bust financially, it's not good for anybody. It's not good for the artist. It's not good for your collectors. So we really have to be mindful of that. And now with everything going virtual and online, it's, you know, I think these lines are blurring a lot more, and we're seeing a lot more attention and people coming to us just through emails and asking for things they've seen online. Any other questions?
So we're at about 10:30 our time. I don't know if anyone has any last minute questions they want to squeeze in, or otherwise, this has been awesome.
What I can do is I'll put my email address here. You guys can, I don't know if you guys can see that. What you guys can do is, if anyone, you know, has any follow-up questions or ever wants some advice or anything like that on art, or wants to see more or learn more, this is what we do. So we're happy to do that. I always find the role of a good gallery is to educate, and educate collectors about the artist, to make them feel more comfortable. You know, if you ever go into a gallery and the gallery makes you feel like uncomfortable or stupid, or then, you know, they're not, in my opinion, doing it right, because, you know, we're all trying to get to the same place where if you have a desire to collect or whatever, the gallery should be facilitating that and trying to educate and answer questions and show that. And I think that's important.
All right. Well, thank you again for doing this. I really appreciate
My
it.
pleasure.
And I think it's been a great experience for all of us. So,
If anyone ever makes it out post-COVID to Dubai,
yeah, definitely. I mean, I took a look at your website and you have some amazing work. I think we'd love to see it.
the thing is, even the artists on our website, like, we represent these artists and this is who we're focusing on, but we have so much more, you know what I mean? This is the other thing too, is galleries might have a lot more stuff also that they're working with. The younger artists are not even on the website yet. So, you know, this is why it's don't ever be too embarrassed to ask or you know, or speak to gallerists. We're not all that scary.
All right. Well, thanks again. Thanks everyone for attending. And if you have any questions, Hisham's email is in the comment section.
All right, guys. Stay safe.
Have a great night. Have a great day.
Take
Bye.
care. See you. Bye.